We're gonna do a bracket thing or anything with our listeners, you think?
Yeah, I think we should reach out to Redmont and just let them know, like, hey, if we want to do any kind of bracket partnership, we're willing to do one to promote their stuff, see if they'll send us anything. All right, let me blast us out here. If I close this, what happens?
We live right now?
Yeah, we're live right now.
Hmm.
I want to get the bracket ready to get pulled up. Will this be easier to see? Ooh, barely, but it looks good. So we're going to go with that. All right, let me get us blasted out here and then we can start the record. What's up, YouTube? Welcome. We're glad you're here. All right, that one's up. Get to Instagram. I don't think that many people ever join from Instagram, but there's usually at least like one or two clicks. So I feel like it's
Oh,
probably worth it.
yeah.
Oh, I don't have the new virtual tumors corner graphic favorited. Dang it.
I wonder what people do that go back and listen to this stuff because clearly, like from the views on live, people come back and listen to it later. But we've got like 10 minutes here of us just chilling before we get started.
I mean, people don't watch on YouTube that much, but like there's usually
Yeah.
at least one or two clicks on the on that. All right, we're up. You ready to do it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Three, two.
All right, you're back with the Jungle Podcast, the official podcast of the number one overall seed, Auburn Tigers. Number one overall in the entire tournament. We've never done it before. We made history once again under Bruce Pearl. You can't ask for a better season, honestly. We were breaking records throughout this season, beating all of the teams we needed to beat. We end up at the end of the year as the overall number one in the South region, where if we get to the Sweet 16 Elite Eight, we'll be playing in Atlanta, a pseudo home game for us. It's been special all along. It's great that our little stutter down the stretch didn't end up putting in peril our number one overall seed. So I'm glad to be here. Ben's here with us, which is exciting. Ben, what do you think about being the number one overall seed?
War Eagle, everybody. We made history. We did it again. Can you believe it? This season has been non-stop history making. It's just I can't get enough of it, and I'm so sad that now at any point this team's run could be over. But what a run it has been, man! What a run!
We've got a ring in the SEC regular season, which is huge. We've got the number one overall seed. So whatever ends up happening, we definitely don't want to lose the 16 seed or anything and make history in that specific way as well. But this has already been special. We've already had a ton of fun. For you guys that have been here for a long time or been Auburn fans for a long time, know how special it is just to make the NCAA tournament at all. We were begging for it through so many coaching tenures, and now under Bruce Pearl we're sitting here wondering if we're going to be the number one overall seed and pulled it off, complaining that we've lost some games down the stretch when we still end up being number one overall seed overall. So I guess the way me and Ben were talking about before this, like what kind of format we're going to take. Usually we do postseason or post game pods, There was two games that happened during the SEC tournament that we haven't talked about yet, so we'll go into those briefly and just kind of how we ended the season here. We started off in the first game against Ole Miss. We took down Ole Miss 62-57 in a bit of a low-scoring slugfest, and then we ended up losing in the second round to Tennessee, 70 to 65. I believe they ended up with the number one seed, I think, or maybe that was did Tennessee end up with the number one seed or no?
No, Tennessee's the number 2 overall seed.
Number
The
two
SEC
seed.
tournament champion Florida Gators got the number 1 overall seed.
Yeah, and they can. Florida ended up beating Tennessee. Florida beat Bama to win the SEC tournament. Tennessee was ranked number 8 in the country. The Final Four SEC championship games were like a Final Four of the NCAA tournament. We're not going to see a team as tough as Tennessee until maybe the Final Four again. Now, that doesn't mean we can't lose again for sure. There's a lot of talented teams in these brackets that might not be as good as Tennessee is up and down the roster, but if you screw up and you don't stay focused, it's going to be an issue. Ole Miss is in the tournament like that. They gave us a bit of a fight. I don't know. What'd you see out there in the SEC tournament?
Well, just a continuing sad trend. Now, granted, we played some good defensive teams, but a troubling trend of our 3-point shooting. Our 3-point shooting has been down to end the year. But the biggest trend throughout the last month, pretty much since that Kentucky game, has been the offensive disappearance of Chaney Johnson. Chaney Johnson has been such a huge part of this front court and one of those players that just raises this team's ceiling to such a huge degree. I've got the box score here pulled up for Tennessee and Auburn in that final game, and you can see Johni Broome absolutely feasted. He finished with 23 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 steals. But the story of the game is free throw shooting. Auburn did not make nearly enough of its free throws. It missed I'm trying to do the math fast here. It missed 9 free throws in a game it lost by 5 points. But despite that, Auburn went on a 10-0 run with about 2.5 minutes to go to bring it close to a single possession game and just couldn't quite get over the hump. So it's been tough. The last couple of weeks have been really tough. After Auburn won the regular season championship, Denver Jones was injured, didn't play the second half against Kentucky, didn't play against A&M, and we dropped that game. We dropped the IBOB in overtime at home. But that's against a 2 seed, and a 4 seed, which is unfortunately the 4 seed that is in our bracket. So Auburn is definitely
bad, terrible matchup for us too. That's probably one of the biggest teams I wanted to avoid, and here we are in the same bracket with them on the same side.
We'll talk about what a nightmare this bracket could potentially be a little bit later. But again, we've got to go back and talk about the SEC got 14 teams into March Madness, once again clearing the record. And Auburn won that conference with a week to spare. That's how good the Auburn Tigers have been this season.
Basically, what happened, like narrative wise, in my head so far this season and down the stretch here was we were so freaking good during the regular season. We were heading towards like historic regular season scenario. We were like in NASCAR about to lap everybody else. That's how far ahead we were. And now we just purely, with a little bit of stumbling after we've already secured the SEC regular season, we kind of pulled back a bit. We weren't in that like, hey, they might even lap the field kind of situation. Yet we still finish in first, still getting the checker flag at first. So it just went from like being like what would have been like something that people would talk about in the history books forever, like performance wise against the best conference all time by the records now with 14 teams in the conference tournament, which is a record. I think the last time was 12. So, it took first place in that. I think narrative wise for me is we took down Kentucky, won the SEC regular season, and then kind of throttled down a little bit. To avoid the engine blowing out, we took Denver out, benched him during the Texas A&M game to make sure he was healthy. We kind of tried to turn it back on against Alabama at home. It's a really good Alabama team that's a number 2 seed and lost in overtime in our own house. Luckily, we had
and what else happened? What else happened in that game? We had memories of March Madness past with Chad Baker Mazara getting ejected. So that's 2 games in a row where you don't have your roster at full strength for the entire 40 minutes. And it's tough. This team, when we started the year, we looked unbeatable. But this team, there's a lot of good competition out there, and that's all we're going to be playing for the next 3 weeks if we can get it that far. So that's been the scary part.
I just feel like we throttled down after the SEC regular season when it's so hard. Even on a regular year, it would be hard to keep winning when you have nothing left to play for. I mean, I said, and a lot of other experts said, we were locked for number 1 seed after that. Number 1 overall seed after that Kentucky game. So what else are you even playing for? So we lost the Texas A&M game. It was already a bad matchup. Benched Denver just to get him healthy. So we were resting players essentially. Hard to turn it back on against Alabama, a team that actually needed that win. Go in the tournament. Luckily, we give a get right game against Ole Miss. It would have really hurt if we would have went 0-3 on the last three games. I would have been really questioning, can this team turn it back on after throttling down? Then we hit Tennessee, a great team, great defense, number two seed in the NCAA tournament, and they got us. It's just how it is. Would have been nice to get them, but we ran into a Final Four caliber team, and they had us out there. We were undisciplined at times. If we're going to break down some of these games, Janai Broome looks better than he's looked all year, potentially even. He's looked healthy again. He's looked dominant out there, but our guards in both games have not. They've looked undisciplined at times, especially in the Tennessee game. The reason we lost that Tennessee game, in my opinion, was free throw shooting and fouling. Part of that was on the refs for getting dumb calls, like a double technical on Miles Kelly that kept him out of the game at times.
The
Double
worst.
technicals are for cowards, just like co-MVPs are for cowards. So our double tech, it was the weakest double tech, and it impacted our game. Just don't call it. Just don't call it if you don't know who did anything. There wasn't even like a fight or punches thrown or anything like that. It was just a little push. So it's crazy to me they even called that. But it
Well,
impacts the
and
whole
I gotta
time.
say
And
something
then
else. I gotta say something else about that because Bruce Pearl came out in his press conference after the Ole Miss game and said that his guards were tough. He said it in a little more colorful language than that, but he basically said that his guards were not soft. They came out against Tennessee the softest I have seen our backcourt all season long. Our point guards combined to go 1 for 14 from the floor. And Zakai Ziegler got whatever he wanted. He was 5'11 from the field. He was still only 1 of 6 from deep. So our 3-point defense continues to be elite, but we just let them cut and slash inside, get to the free throw line again and again and again. So I hope that continues to be a wake up call for the whole part of our team. I mean, it was obvious that Janai Broome woke up after that Texas A&M game and became the dude. I mean, I think he's averaging
here's
something like 25 points a game over the last three, but we
here's
need this
two
whole team together.
here's two pivotal moments in that Tennessee game. Not to break it down too deeply, because I know we want to talk bracket stuff too, but early in the first half, after talking about how this was going to be a huge defensive grind match, that it was going to be low scoring and all that, both teams were really hitting shots. And the big thing Tennessee was doing was driving past our guards and finishing at the rim. It's something we've been doing all year, pushing teams off the 3-point line, making them drive in. Except for Tennessee was finishing and hitting hard twos. On top of that, we were fouling a decent amount. Uh, at some time between in the mid first half, clearly the coaching staff said, we're doing something wrong here. Took a timeout and decided to reset. Said our game plan didn't work, and we took that game back and ended up with a lead in the end of the first half. Then in the second half, the fouls really built up, and they went on a little run, and we let go of the rope. We had some frustration fouls, fouls away from the ball, fouls away from the basket. It was brutal, and it added up. And they were in the double bonus before we were even in the bonus. They were in the bonus 3 or 4 fouls before we were in the bonus, and they hit all their free throws. And they hit, I think, like 25 free throws, I believe.
I think
And
it was 25 out of 27. Yeah.
in a game where two teams were very evenly matched, let's see where it was down here, 25 of 27, crazy, good for them. And we were 59%, 13 of 22. But the huge difference was
Bad.
this was going to be a tough game to get points. We knew that. We knew that neither offense was going to play well. Our offense played better than them at the end of the game. But for a while there, when we were trying to make a comeback, when we were trying to play well on offense, all they had to do was dribble the ball up the court past the half court line and get fouled and hit their free throws. And that's what happened over and over again. And that's how they stretched their lead as well. Pettiford had some frustrating threes. CBM had some frustrating, not threes, free throws. And it's just, you have to stay disciplined the entire game against these really good teams. In the last couple games, it feels like we have had different moments in the game where our veteran players, fifth year seniors, 25-year-olds are making silly fouls when they get frustrated. And it ends up, we'll have a close game in overtime against Alabama. We'll have a chance at the end of this game. But really what it came down to is you can't win a game early in the second half, but you can definitely lose it. And that's what we did with these frustrating fouls. That's what we did by not hitting our free throws. Janai Broome on top of all of this. Love him. He's been dominant down low, but he is not hitting his free throws. If I had any advice for any of this stuff is to take a day or two off and then spend the rest of the time shooting free throws because it's really going to matter in March, and it already has, and already lost us this game against Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, it's why the MAT system exists. We got down by 10 points late in the second half, and we managed to go on a run, but you have to play perfect basketball, getting stops and getting buckets for so long to get yourself back into it. And we had 3 looks at the basket with 1 possession game and could not make a shot. We were miserable from deep the same way that we have been since that Kentucky game. And it's going to be the biggest thing to watch. We've got a get right game in the first round because Alabama State or it's too small to read.
We hit the same amount of three pointers in both games against Ole Miss and Tennessee.
Oh,
6 of
that's
21,
brutal.
28%. So we do
Brutal.
have to shoot better. A big part of this whole season's success has been that Janai Broome is the best player in America, deserves to be National Player of the Year, has been dominant. We won't see a guy like him maybe ever again. It's been such a pleasure to watch him. And then somebody from the guard positions goes off every game. Somebody. We have so many weapons to pick from. We've got Denver Jones. We've got Miles Kelly, even Chaney Johnson, Chad Baker-Mazard, Todd Pettiford. One of them almost always goes off as well from shooting or whatever. In 2 games in a row is not really played out that way. Who went off? Maybe Denver Jones could have been considered going off against Tennessee, but not really. He had 10 points. Miles Kelly had 13
They
points, and
were
he
all at
was
the free
out
throw
for
line.
yeah, and Denver or Miles Kelly was out for a lot of the game. He only played 25 minutes when he's usually, one of our top minutes has some of the most minutes during the game. Janai Broome maybe usually beats him out, but Miles Kelly always surprisingly has almost always the most minutes. So you got to have it's just very rare that you would have Chad Baker-Mazard, Denver Jones, Miles Kelly, Todd Pettiford, and Chaney Johnson all not have great games, and that's what happened in the Tennessee game, and that's part of the reason we lost.
And look, we've got a get right game coming up. St. Francis and Alabama State, neither of them shoot better than 34% from three. So they're not going to be one of these teams that comes out there and absolutely just shoots the lights out and we have to guard everyone all the time. It's going to be a get right game in that first round, and it's going to be about establishing a new offensive identity that helps our guards get hot and stay hot because we know no matter who he's matched up against, Janai Broome is going to get his. That is all he's done against 1 seeds and 2 seeds for the last 2 weeks. That's all he's done all year. It's why he's the National Player of the Year. But we have got to have guys around him step up.
It's just so funny that this is the time where Bruce calls out that my guards are tough when it was 2 games that the guards were disappointing in. Like Janai Broome put the team on his back in 2 different games. Denver Jones was the only other double digit score against Ole Miss. Everybody else had under 10. 2 games in a row for Todd Pettiford that he did not play good in this SEC tournament, which is not great because I think we all thought that he was built for March. This is a gamer. This guy thrives at away games. This guy thrives under pressure, and he hasn't been great. Uh, Man, I am so. Me and you are on the same page. We're both the fires to like Matt and Storman's water signs or whatever you want to call it. But we are so pissed at CBM. I am so personally mad at CBM. He crossed the line that Alabama game. He's 25 years old, and then it really feels like in this Ole Miss and Tennessee game they were like, "Hey, CBM, one they benched him or not benched him, but didn't start him against Ole Miss. They started Chris Moore instead. That seems to be has been his punishment because they started him in the Tennessee game. But he's just like holding his head down during the Ole Miss game. Just did not seem to bring the same fire that you need, and we don't need the fire that elbows the other teams. We don't need the fire that yells at the other team's bench. How can you not bring that same intensity and make shots and play good defense? Does it have to be in like a crappy way that breaks the rules? I don't understand. And in Tennessee, he stepped up a little bit more. It felt like he had 9 points, 1 of 2 from 3-point line. But really, he also had some frustrating fouls in this one where he just fouled away from the ball or fouled away from the basket when things got bad. And we just can't have our older players doing stuff like that. And so I don't know what to say other than he's got to step it up during March Madness. He's our X factor. And I don't know. Like, I can't believe it's either one or the other. We have to play a guy that might get completely kicked out of the game or a guy that's going to hold his head and just be a mediocre player. I don't, blows my mind.
Yeah, it seems like there's 2 out of 3 bad things that Chad Baker-Mazar can do. Either he's going to play completely out of control and do something stupid that costs him the ability to stay on the floor. He's going to get frustrated and hang his head and have terrible body language and not be a participant in the game. Or he's going to be the circus shot freak maker that we have seen him be when Janai Broome was out. I mean, when Janai Broome was out for that 3-game stretch, Chad Baker-Mazar was our number 1 offensive weapon, especially cutting to the lane, getting to the basket, and drawing fouls. And Bruce has talked a little bit about changing some of our offensive identity going into March to not be so Broome heavy, because that has been a recipe that works to a certain degree, but against these elite teams that have too many weapons, it's clear we've got to get other guys going. I mean, I remember a night earlier in the year where Todd Pettiford asked Denver Jones to take some technical free throws because he just needed to see the ball go in. he was having another one of those 0 for nights where it just seemed like he was having a freshman moment. He hit those 2 free throws and wanted to have 11 points in that game. And we just have moments like that where guys need to see it go in a couple of times to start feeling like they're in their groove and start feeling dangerous. We cannot be the Janai Broom show and go as far as we want to go. We need all these guys to contribute. We need Chaney to hit from inside of 2 feet. Oh my goodness. Chaney Johnson has been an amazing 3-point shooter for the month of March and a terrible 2-point shooter for the month of March. Who had that coming?
I got this whole argument online about Chaney Johnson because I've had the same feeling about Chaney Johnson since he's been here. He's really good against mediocre opponents because he's this like size wise he can bully the mediocre opponents. When he plays the good opponents, he completely disappears. That's what happened, I think, in the last couple games as well. We've played some really good opponents, and his bullying style just doesn't work for them. It's frustrating to watch him not finish and when he's get these open twos where he like kind of backs the guy down and just doesn't finish close to the basket. Maybe in these first 2 games he'll still be able to do that, but I think he should have figured out by now how to finish against some good teams. We don't need him to go off for 15 or 20, but we do need him to contribute 7, 8 points in some of these and have some of these minutes. We've been in foul trouble all year, and he's a huge reason. He's a guy that's constantly been in foul trouble. He admitted himself in some of these press conferences. He was like, I just need to keep doing me other than the fouling part. This whole year, I mean, since before the year even started, I believe there was a quote from Bruce Pearl that said one of the things we need to figure out is how to play defense without fouling. We have got to stop fouling people when they don't have the ball and when they're not near the basket, because there's going to be times where you have to sacrifice
and when we've been
it.
beat.
And when we've been beat,
we make
I call
so
them
many
frustration
bad
fouls.
plays worse.
Yeah,
Yes.
we call them frustration fouls. The point guard gets his pocket picked, which has been rare this year, but then when he does, Denver Jones or definitely Todd Pettiford this last game did 1 or 2 of these stupid fouls where he got the steal and then compounded his mistake by fouling at the same time. CBM does it as well. They just get frustrated and then foul immediately. Cardwell does it when he loses a rebound. He'll still keep fighting for that offensive rebound, or like it would have been a defensive rebound. He'll keep fighting for it and foul the guy. It's been very frustrating from an older team to do that. And what ends up happening a lot, I don't know if like people that are just kind of not tuning in and not thinking about it too hard, what ends up happening is they do all these stupid fouls throughout the game and we don't think about it too hard. And then we look up and our guys are in foul trouble and our rotations are off and the other team's been shooting free throws for several more minutes than us. And we start like getting mad about it down the stretch and every little call down the stretch. But what made the difference was late in the first half when they took 2 or 3 stupid fouls on screens and when they took 2 or 3 stupid fouls on like stopping a fast break they didn't need to stop because they could at least made them make a hard 2 and they miss half the time. So I don't know. We just got to figure out the fouling. Part of that's when you play elite teams, you're going to foul more, but it's been an issue all year long. And we're harping all this stuff because we're on a losing streak, or not really a losing streak, but we've lost 3 of the last 4. But I don't know if this is a good time to turn the corner. If you have any other thoughts on the SEC tournament.
No, man, let's turn the corner and let's pump some sunshine into this podcast. We've talked plenty, but listen, the trends, the stats, the metrics, throw it all out the window. This is March, baby. This is when a 15 seed goes on a tear. This is when North Carolina State, who was with a losing record heading into last year's ACC tournament, makes the Final Four. Nothing matters now, but do you have the guts to go 40 minutes with whoever is right in front of you? And this team has done an amazing job of that all year. Set a program record for the most quad 1 wins ever. Set a program record for the most ranked wins ever. Tied the program record for wins in the regular season and SEC wins. Set the record, if you include our win over Ole Miss in the SEC tournament, for the most conference wins ever for a team. We are the #1 overall seed. We won the last Maui tournament that matters. We got Duke as our matchup in the SEC ACC Challenge. These are the golden years, Jackson. The golden years. We're living in them.
War damn Eagle. That's an insane list you just rattled off. It's crazy. We're so spoiled this year because they came out with such a hot start.
Look at this bracket.
We only lost.
We have played every #1 seed. We have
insane.
We have played half of the #2 seeds. We might have had a shot at Michigan State had they been able to win over Memphis in Maui. The #3 seeds, Kentucky, played them, beat them. Who else we got here? Iowa State, played them, beat them. Texas Tech, haven't played them yet. Thank goodness they are not in our region. That's a matchup night for us. Wisconsin, we play them enough in the other sport. We don't need to see them again. You look up and down March Madness, it's teams that we've played. I mean, we have been in the thick of it all year. We have been battle tested, and we came out the other side, the #1 overall seed, We were not just
Have we?
November champions or December champions or January champions. Jackson, we're coming in to March Madness, number one overall.
Yeah, we've only lost. The worst loss we have is against a number 4 seed, right? Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Every other loss we have is either a 1 or 2 seed.
Yep.
Florida, Duke, Tennessee,
Alabama.
Alabama, and Texas A&M, right? We have 5 losses.
That's it, baby.
That's
That's it.
crazy. 4 of our 5 losses are against 1 and 2 seeds, and the fifth one is a 4 seed. Insane. That's how we are. So like when we look at this tournament, we're like frustrated at like how we lived a bit down the stretch here. We're not going in with the kind of momentum we'd like to see. We're still like we won't play a seed as high as what we've lost to until the Sweet 16 potentially. Like that's the closest we'll get is Sweet 16. We might play a 4 seed in Texas A&M, and we played them away at Texas A&M, and we had nothing to win. You know, we had already wrapped up the SEC regular season. It's a bad matchup for us,
And
but
they had everything to play for because that win is the reason why they're on the 4 line.
we won't play another team as good as Tennessee, Alabama, or Florida or Duke until the Final Four. They're all in different brackets than us. Those are the two of those are
Yeah.
1 seeds, and the other 2 are 2 seeds, and they're not none of them in our bracket. So
We
like,
made the
sure,
mistake. We
Michigan
made the
State
mistake.
maybe, but
Yeah, we made the mistake last year of looking a little too far ahead because you gotta think like Michigan State. They're a very good team. They won the regular season Big Ten championship going away. Iowa State. They've had to deal with a lot of injuries, so they weren't as competitive in the Big 12 as they wanted to be. But they made the semifinal in their tournament. They were up at one point by 18 on us or 16 on us in Maui before we staged that amazing comeback. Ole Miss, a team that we have had to play 3 times this season, is the number 6 seed in our bracket. And guess who they might have to play, sneaking in the back door in a play-in game? The North Carolina Tar Heels, who somehow, despite a 1-11 quad one record, have once again made it into March. And Jackson, don't
did
look
they?
now, but there's a sneaky team sitting there at that 13 seed in our bracket. You know the committee couldn't resist the chance to do it. The Yale Bulldogs
Would
are
love to get
in
some
our
revenge.
region.
Would absolutely love for them to take down Tech. I'll be the biggest Yale fan until the Sweet 16. Take down Texas A&M, take down Michigan or UC San Diego, and let us have a rematch because I guarantee we bring the fire against the Yale team that
I
got
mean,
us
look,
last year.
you want to talk about narratives. Think about this. We could match up with a Michigan team in the Sweet 16 that
With
has
Trey
Trey
Donaldson.
Donaldson, our former point guard that
It's
just
a
won the Big Ten tournament.
the flip side of this bracket. So we'll go through it here, but if you haven't been watching, but it's not the best for our number 1 overall seed. It's not the best you could grab, but no matter what we grabbed, there was going to be things we'd be upset about. It's going to suck in the second round, potentially play Louisville in Lexington, Kentucky. We got really lucky. Everybody's calling this out. We got really lucky a year or 2 ago to play Houston, number 1 overall Houston in Birmingham. Everybody was really, all the Houston fans were pissed that they were going to have to play an away game against a talented Auburn team 2 years ago. This year, we might have to play an away game against Louisville in Lexington as the overall number 1 seed. That sucks. We'll just have to cheer for Creighton and hope that that doesn't happen, or just win away. We've done it
I don't
all
know.
year, you know.
Here's my thing about that next round matchup. Creighton has a true 7 foot center. Matt's called this guy a little bit more finesse than a lot of big men, but we faced a finesse 7 foot center in Derek Wolf last year. And 7 foot centers have been some of Janai Broom's kryptonite. You know, he's not the bounciest player. His speed and his agility at his size have been his calling card. But playing against the true 7 footers, he's struggled. And against a team like Creighton that can shoot the 3 ball as well as they can, Creighton's beaten a lot of really good teams this year. So
Basically, he moves so fast, Broom, that the other team's center or power forward can't jump in time to get in the way of his shot, really. But if you have a 7 footer, they can kind of just keep their hands up and still interfere with what's going on, and he can't bully them quite as much, even if they're not as talented on the offensive side. So
Creighton did lose in the non-conference to Texas A&M. They lost by 4 in the Players Era tournament that Auburn will be playing in next year. They also lost by 8 at Alabama. So we've got some common foes there that they've lost to as well. We've also lost to both of those teams, so it'll be a tricky matchup. And Creighton was who put the nail in the coffin of Kansas's number 1 run. Kansas, with one of the most expensive rosters in all of basketball, comes in at a 7 seed in the West bracket. Rough year for the Jayhawks.
We kind of skipped over a bit our first opponent because it's a 16 seed, but teams have lost 2 16 seeds now. It used to be like no team had ever lost, and then Virginia did that year where they lost, and now what? Purdue lost a year or 2 ago. So we can't take it, we can't rest on this one. It's gonna be either Alabama State or St. Francis. I don't like that we have to play the play-in 16 seed. I think technically those are worse teams than the other 16 seeds, but I don't like having teams that have got a little momentum and have already gotten their first game out of the way. I definitely don't like it in the higher seeds if you ever get one of those. I don't know who I want to play. It'd be kind of fun to play
Well, I'm
Alabama
going to tell you
State
right
as a
now,
Montgomery native,
it
but
would
I don't want to give that
it
extra
would
motivation.
it would be fun to play Alabama State, but St. Francis is one of those teams that went on an absolute tear through their conference tournament. They finished the year with a losing record, won in overtime in their last game, and then won 3 games in a row to take their conference tournament in the Northeast Conference and punch their ticket to the dance. They are an absolute Cinderella story. They're led by Riley Parker, their senior guard or junior guard rather, who's 6'2", that averages 13.4 points a game on 48% shooting. He's not a crazy 3-point shooter at oh no, he is a crazy 3-point shooter. I'm reading that percentage wrong. 39.9%. So he's definitely a guy to watch out for with them coming in. And then for the Alabama State Hornets, they won the SWAC championship, won their tournament and punched their ticket to the dance. They're led by a guard, CJ Hines, who's a senior from Atlanta, Georgia. So might know some of the guys in this roster, averaging 14 points a game and also shooting 39% from three. Now, thankfully, those teams as a whole are not great 3-point shooting teams. They don't have a ton of weapons around them. The lack of depth is going to be the key for us going up against these teams. I think we're bigger than both of those teams. Neither of them have a true power forward that gets a ton of minutes. So I think size gives us a really good advantage against both of those teams. Like I said, it's going to be a chance for Janai to feast. It should hopefully be a get right game for our guards in terms of how they lock down defensively, because they're going to be playing against some pretty good high shooting guards. And it's March. You're not going to play a bad team. Everybody's hungry. Everybody wants to take their shot.
Yeah, I love watching March Madness every year. It's so much fun. Take off work if you can, or work remote, whatever you need to watch the games. But there seems to be every year lately 16C versus one, and what usually happens is like one out of the four is kind of close the entire game until like the last like couple minutes when they usually pull away. But there's always a one seed or two that blows the mess out of the team out, like 110 to 40 kind of blowouts. Please let's do that. We need a game where we do that and blow a team out, get some rest, but we haven't done that in the last couple of games, but it's against good opponents. So let's just hope for that. Personally, I'll cheer for Alabama State to be in it. I like other teams from the state of Alabama. Troy made the tournament as well. UAB had a chance today to make the tournament and didn't, but that'll be interesting. Also, a little tangent. I think playing games are absolute crap. I think playing games are so stupid. It's just another greedy way for them to have additional games in here, another greedy way for them to get big major teams in. Kick out the UNCs of the world and whoever else you need to kick out because it's bullcrap that Alabama State and St. Francis can win their conference, punch their ticket to the big dance, and then they say, "Oh, actually, you're going to play another game just to get in." That's kind of part of March Madness and kind of not part of March Madness. So either way, I
Well,
hate all these playing games.
here's my only defense for it. I kind of like the first four a little bit for the small guys, because on Tuesday night there's only 2 games happening. It's North Carolina, San Diego State, and then the nightcap is St. Francis, Alabama State. That's a chance for them to be on a national stage, one of the only games, and it's a really great chance for those two programs to get a win in March Madness. Like, how often does a 16 seed actually get a win in the tournament? It's only happened twice in the tournament's history ever. But you're absolutely right about like just sneaking some teams in the back door. I mean, San Diego State has a Final Four recently. North Carolina's blood is as blue as it gets. Xavier probably deserved to be in this tournament over a team like Texas, but given that Texas is in, I'm glad that Xavier at least has a shot to get to the rest of the game. But I'm not a huge fan of the play-in games either, especially not for the name brand teams. It's kind of pathetic.
Here's some other potential teams down our schedule here. We talked about Louisville Creighton pretty deeply there. That would be potentially our second round. The next four that we could potentially play in the Sweet 16 is Michigan, led by Trey Donaldson, our point guard from last year. They've been playing really well. I believe they won their conference. Am I right? Or they lost
Yeah,
today?
they won their conference tournament.
Did they or did Wisconsin? They
No, no,
won today, Michigan.
they won today.
Okay, so Michigan won the conference. They're hot. I don't want to have to play our former point guard. He'll know everything about our team for the most part, or at least last year's team and who was on it last year. So that's annoying. They play UC San Diego. You know, I always cheer for the upset. So let's hope they have an upset. And then it's Texas A&M versus
UC
Yale.
San Diego UC San Diego is going to be another one of those scary teams. As a team, they shoot nearly 37% from deep, and that's a recipe for how you beat one of these name brand programs. Same for Yale. Yale is once again shooting the lights out behind John Poulikitis and Bez and Bang. It would not surprise me at all to see A&M and Michigan go down in that first round to these hot shooting teams.
Michigan, UC San Diego is that classic 5-12 that you always see upsets in because it's the best teams in these mid-major, like smaller mid-major conferences, and usually a major team that's been fine. So you usually see some upsets there. Uh, Yale, we'll see if they can tempt any of Texas A&M's players into ejecting themselves by elbowing someone. So we'll see how good Yale really is when you have a
Dirty,
full squad.
dirty, filthy
Uh,
Yale.
Ole Miss, who does Ole Miss play? They've got one of the
Ole
play-in
Miss is
ones.
playing the Ole Miss is playing the winner of San Diego State UNC. So that's why I said we might wind up facing Carolina again at some point. That's a
Every
potential. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
Everybody thinks that the UNC getting in is bullcrap. Just watch out because UNC, those are some of the scariest teams. The 12 seeds are really scary, and blue blood teams with a lot of talent that just haven't figured it out during the year are really scary too. Because a lot of times the issue with those teams is they've not pulled in the same direction. They've not figured out their identity, and at any moment with that talent, they can figure it out. With that incentive that it's win or go home, they can figure it out. So watch out for that. Ole Miss has to play them, which sucks for them. Either San Diego State or UNC, who've both had good history lately in the tournament. Then it's Iowa State Lipscomb for two Church of Christ boys. That's an interesting
Woo!
matchup right there. We'll be going for our former church denomination or whatever there. Iowa State
Jackson, I believe you
talented.
and I spent some time on Lipscomb's campus as young men.
Too much time, too much time. And I lived in Nashville. But there's just something funny. We just end up in our text group all the time bringing up Lipscomb when they have success, which is funny. Iowa State, who we play, we know is really talented. 3 seed versus 14 seed. Then we got Marquette, New Mexico. New Mexico teams are scary. Marquette's been playing well in the Big East. I went and watched Marquette this year play St. John's, who's been like America's team, St. John's or New York's team at least. Marquette's a solid team. Then Michigan State, Bryant. Bryant's the team that took down Kentucky with the white boy that hit all those threes. It was a ton of fun last year and got Calipari fired. So that rounds out our side of the bracket there. I mean, if we go Elite Eight, probably Michigan State. If we go Sweet 16, maybe Texas A&M. Uh, I don't know. How do you feel like this bracket ended up for us?
Matt and Ryan, the guys that are a little bit more level headed than us, hate this bracket. So I'm probably wrong and probably don't know ball, but I freaking love this draw. I think it works out really well. I don't think we're a great matchup for Clemson at 5. So I'm glad to avoid them, even though we may not match up as well against Michigan either. It'll be tough to see Michigan get out of this first round against UC San Diego. Then they're going to have a tough game against A&M coming up next. We avoided a lot of those mid-seed blue bloods that you've been talking about. Arizona's a 4 seed in somebody else's bracket. UConn has got to play Florida in the second round. That is a nightmare scenario if you are the Florida Gators coming in so hot against a UConn team with everything to prove. Gonzaga is going to go up against Houston in the second round. We missed that blue blood there. Kentucky's a 3 seed in somebody else's bracket. UCLA is a 7 seed in somebody else's bracket. Kansas is a 7 seed in somebody else's bracket. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at Florida's draw. They got UConn in the second round, a Memphis team that is blistering hot since Maui and tore its way through. They got Grand Canyon, another one of those 12 seeds that just shoots the lights out. A Missouri team that's beaten them once already this season. Texas Tech, with one of the most dynamic front courts in all of America, gave Houston all they could run for. A Kansas team that was picked to be national champions who just hasn't quite been able to put it together. And then the team that you were just talking about, America's team, the St. John's Red Storm. If I'm Florida, I am miserable with this draw. It is killers all the way down.
If you let me ask you this one here. So I think the reason I'll outline the reason why Ryan and Matt are upset. Louisville in Kentucky, that sucks. Away game, terrible. Could go out in second round, miserable. Michigan against Trey Donaldson, not fun. Don't want to have to play our old point guard like that. They're really hot. They just won the Big Ten. Teams that win their tournament, I feel like, are always hot coming in. I think, just like we did in 2019 with that Final Four run. Texas A&M on the other side is a terrible matchup for us. It has been for a really long time. Buzz Williams is the worst lower seed SEC team we could possibly play. Any other team besides, like, we were never going to play Bama, Tennessee, or Florida because they're top 4 seeds, or like, it was not going to happen scheduling wise. But Texas A&M was the other team that we wouldn't want to play. I would play any other SEC team but them, so that sucks. And my question is, would you rather have Alabama's bracket than ours?
Um,
Up
that's
in,
tough
up
to
until the
say.
Elite Eight, up until the Elite Eight. I'm talking just their East region right there.
I mean, Alabama could potentially get Vanderbilt in the second round, so I'd love that. I don't think Wisconsin has the offensive horses to run with them or us. And, BYU plays pretty good defense. So, all things considered, I think Alabama has a fairly straightforward path to the Elite Eight. But just because it's straightforward doesn't mean it's easy. I mean, they don't call it March Madness for nothing. I love that we are in a bracket with so many narratives for us. I mean, you already hit one of them on the head. Playing Louisville in Lexington, that place is going to be Louisville Cardinal red up and down if they can get past Creighton. Um, playing against Trey Donaldson uh, in Michigan, playing against an A&M team that already beat us once, and playing against Yale, who knocked us out of the tournament last year. That means our Sweet 16 matchup, 3 out of those 4 teams have a really, really strong, compelling narrative going against us. And then, making that to the other side, it's either going to be a UNC team fighting for relevance, an Ole Miss team that we would have had to beat 3 times, Iowa State, who we matched up with well in Maui and looked like they were going to run away from us before we started to come back, Marquette, featuring Cam Jones, one of the other finalists for Player of the Year, along with Janai Broom, and then Michigan State, a team that has looked so dominant over the last 2 months of the Big Ten season. There's a lot to not love about this side of the bracket, sure. But as you recall, Jackson, when we made our last Final Four run, we had to go through all the Blue Bloods. We had to go through North Carolina. We had to go through Kansas. We had to go through Kentucky again, a team that absolutely obliterated us in Rupp to get to that Final Four. I I'm just ready to have more fun. I think there's so much fun to be had with all of these narratives going around. I think despite being the number one overall seed, we're going to be, like you have said so often, one of the trendiest upset picks. We're going to be the first number one seed that most bracket fillers expect to go out. So I just can't wait to be the number one overall seed and yet somehow subvert people's expectations.
We will be a really, really trendy pick by the national media to go out because of that Louisville matchup in Kentucky and because of how uh, we're on a bad, not bad losing streak, but we've lost a couple games down, how we stumbled down the stretch. So just get ready for that from all your friends and family that put us as the back bracket buster. Put us all the way. I always put us all the way because you're only going to have so many attempts to do that. And it's legit this year with the over number one seed. Go chalk if you want to. And it's not even weird to do that. But I think, make them pay. If they want to pick us as the upset, make your friends and family pay for that. I think it'd be interesting for me and you to go through a bit of these other brackets of just stuff that sticks out to you. Number one, Duke
Oh, there's
is
one
the
other thing I forgot to mention.
yeah.
Potential second round matchup: Michigan versus Yale. That's Derek Wolf's old team.
Oh
So
wow.
like our whole bracket is chock full of narratives, and I'm sure a lot of the other ones are. But I've really been going through ours with a fine tooth comb.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about some of these other matchups.
Duke is the number two seed overall. Their fans have been on my absolute nerves. I would love to rematch with them in the Final Four because they've been smug all year. They've been so
Well,
irritated that we've
that
been ahead
won't
of them all year.
that won't happen. We'll only match up with them in the national title if we both make it.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'd love it. I'd love a rematch. Could you imagine Cooper Flag, Janai Broom national championship game, revenge for the game during the regular season? Oh my God. College basketball at its best if that could happen, but rarely does that happen. That's what my else I want to note for fans that don't pay attention always every year or just March watchers. Rarely does the best team in college basketball actually win the national championship. It's just too random in March. You just got to keep taking shots, and the higher seed you are, the better shots you got. It's kind of like gambling a bit. So we're just taking our best possible shot this year, and honestly, we're due. We are due after some bad luck the last couple of years. So just got to hope that it's finally our time. The Duke one is interesting over there. We've got Houston, who we've played and beat on the other side, Florida on another side. Alabama, like we've already noted, has an easier path than I would like. Super interesting that they could be playing Vanderbilt second. Vanderbilt has brought down some really good teams, but I just feel like if it's me, I would love to play Vanderbilt again. I just don't think they have the horses to keep up with Alabama, but I know they've taken down some other teams in their own house. But hey, it's different to win at home than it is in a neutral tournament.
Well, Jackson, here's an interesting question for you. We got 14 teams into the dance. How many of them are still playing after the first week?
That'll be a huge, huge narrative. Either it happens like we think it's going to happen, and SEC is really that dominant, and we usher in this like new era. We've basically been ushering in this new era of like SEC dominant basketball nationally all year long. It's been what everybody's been talking about all year long. We just broke the record of most teams of any conference to ever make the tournament. But if we screw up, if the SEC starts losing a bunch of these in the first round, people will pounce. Opposing fans will pounce so hard to say the SEC is a bunch of jokers and that they made up this bias just like they do in the other sport. So it'll be super interesting. Personally, I think the SEC really is just that good, and I think it'll get proven out in the tournament this year. I mean, I can't like go through it with a fine-tooth comb to pick out who's going to lose and who's going to win because there's just too many teams. We have to go through 14 freaking teams to decide that. But I personally, I think it's going to be pretty heavy SEC. Basically, anything that's
I'm going to
anybody's
go
a leading seed, I would pick to win.
I'm going to go the exact opposite. I'm going to say that we have 14 teams going in, and by the second round, there are only 5 teams left.
No.
I'm hoping that's going to be us. I think Missouri's got a pretty favorable matchup. I like Kentucky's matchup against Troy. I think they've got enough talent to keep going.
So
Tennessee,
only one non one seed or two seed SEC team moves on.
that's
Because
right.
right, because it's all there's four teams that are either a one seed or a two seed. So you're saying only one SEC team for the rest of the bracket is going to move
No,
on.
only 2. I think only did I say 5 or did I say
So you
6? I
said
think I said
five, and
6.
four of them are one and two seeds, which is very rare. You know, you have to get your player ejected like CBM to lose some of those. So then like you're that's crazy. That's crazy. Everybody else loses
Yeah, no,
basically.
look, I think you're going to see a lot of really chalk results. I mean, I think Kansas over Arkansas is a really easy pick. I think Gonzaga over Georgia and Baylor over Mississippi State. There's nothing controversial about those. I don't think UConn beating Oklahoma is going to shock anybody. I think Missouri can beat Drake. I don't know if they will. And honestly, what I really want to see, and this is probably just me dreaming, but like I want to see Yale beat A&M. Ooh, do I want to
That'd
see
be
it?
so nice. It'd be
And
so nice.
I think they're one of the only teams that could do it because they're such a quick trigger on the 3-point shooting thing, and Texas A&M really relies on guys setting up in the half court to run their trap defense and run their aggressive presses. And the fact that Yale has so many shooters across the floor is going to force A&M to get back and get them out of their trap game. That
Well, we
it is
might.
what works so well. And
We,
I think St. Mary's is going to blow the doors off of Vanderbilt. I don't think that one's going to be particularly close.
Texas A&M was on a really bad losing streak before they beat us, and it's changed the entire narrative for them. But people aren't realizing too that we were resting players that game. We had nothing to play for. So you're right. It could be right back to the norm of Wade Taylor shooting 100 shots and making three of them, and people acting like he's a big deal. But there's some other crazy narratives in here that are fun. I didn't realize some of these lower SEC teams made it. I mean, it makes sense because all but two teams made it, South Carolina and LSU. But Oklahoma, like I wonder how top heavy the SEC is. But some teams like Oklahoma, Arkansas, who else we got? Georgia. I'm just not very impressed with these teams. So you're right, they might all go down like that, and then all of a sudden
Well,
it looks like we're top heavy.
I think Mississippi State has the most favorable of those sort of 8, 9, 7, 10 matchups. I think they match up pretty well with Baylor. I think Josh Hubbard is built for March. He's a guy that's never afraid of the moment. And they still have Tolu Smith and a pretty dominant front court down there. But I don't know how Oklahoma is going to stop UConn. Oklahoma couldn't stop anybody in this SEC schedule. I think Kansas without Edu Thiero is going to blast through Arkansas's front court and just outpace them and turn it into a track meet. I think St. Mary's can shoot the three really well, and Vanderbilt's thing has been defending the lane. And then Georgia and Gonzaga, it's kind of interesting. Gonzaga's got a lot of talent, and Georgia's got a lot of youth. And I just think that Gonzaga's experience in the tournament and in these types of matchups is going to allow them to overcome the talent of a guy like Asanuel.
Yeah, I hate those matchups if I'm an Oklahoma fan or a Georgia fan having to play blue bloods that have just kind of had struggling years with really good coaches and teams that have been there before. So yeah, I don't expect Georgia Oklahoma to beat those blue bloods like that. Missouri
Hey,
could make a run.
I'm not looking forward to Doug McDermott and Creighton either.
Missouri could make a run. That would be interesting. They have to play Drake because another one of these mid majors that won their tournament and has been there a couple times. I think I looked up that Drake has come to the tournament a bunch of times now. They've done like a really good job of making the tournament.
I think Missouri could win that game, but I do not think Missouri can get back Texas Tech. JT Toppin is too dominant in the front court, and that has been Missouri's kryptonite all year. If you can bang inside and get those hard twos against them and play elite perimeter defense, which Texas Tech can, I think Texas Tech wins that one going away.
I would love to see St. John's. If it can't be Auburn, St. John's is my other team right now. New York's team. I'm in New York. Ben's in New York. I went and saw St. John's play. My company I work for is doing a documentary on St. John's, so I got to do some stuff with that. Man, they have been so much fun this year. I can't believe Rick Pitino has taken St. John's to the number 2 seed and like another team to the tournament. Like it would be quite the story if he made a run, which people are expecting. I mean, when you're number 2 seed, people make a run. Calipari versus Rick Pitino in the second round if Arkansas wins. Oh, heck, Bill Self and Rick Pitino in the second round is great too. So on the other side of the
Yeah, a
bracket,
lot of great coaches.
you got Tennessee at number 2 against Wofford. Wofford's upset teams before. That'd be interesting. Troy against Kentucky. Would love to see Troy take down Kentucky. How great would that be? I always cheer for these other Alabama teams besides University of Alabama to do well. I don't think Troy's made the tournament since 2017 and like one other time, so it's cool to see them pull that off. McNeese State's going to be an interesting one. They've got Will Wade, and they've got this trainer, Waterboy style guy that plays like music out of a huge speaker, and everybody's been like applauding them online. So that'll be a fun 5-12 against Clemson. I would call if I had to pick a 5-12, that's the one I'm picking as an upset. I think good coach in Will Wade. They've got the hype. I think Clemson is like one of those lower ACC teams when the ACC team is a fraud conference, in my opinion. High Point versus Purdue is interesting. High Point's been on quite the run, so we could see if that gets upset. Yeah, Georgia Gonzaga we talked about. I mean, that's about your bracket there. Uh, I don't know. We'll put some stuff out on socials. What we'll most likely do bracket wise is do Charles Barkley's bracket again and do a in the past we've had you just put the jungle as part of your name on there so we can search through it and see who's doing well in the brackets. We love Redmond, we love Charles Barkley's brackets, and if you do better than Charles Barkley in his bracket, they send you a sticker which I find really fun. It's really fun, like a couple weeks later, to like randomly after you've kind of forgotten about March Madness to get this, envelope in the mail, and it's, hey, you beat Charles Barkley, the guy that gets on TV and talks about basketball for a living in his bracket. And I think that's really cool that they do that. But that's about your bracket. We'll let you guys know on social media. Ben's breaking out the sticker, I believe, here. You want to show the audience? Oh, he's
Friend
got
of,
his.
friend of the pod, friend of the pod, Charles Barkley. No, I didn't win the sticker last year because I had Auburn going all the way, and we all know how that went.
I
So I
think
did
I've
not
gotten a
beat Sir
sticker.
Charles last year.
I've gotten a sticker every year we've done it so far, which I think is only 2 years, but we'll see if I can pick a third one. Another broadcasting note here is I don't think me or Matt will be able to do any podcasts in during the March Madness tournament. I'll be traveling, and Matt's got some stuff going on in his life too, so it'll be very Ben and Ryan heavy. Hopefully, we'll see some Shooty Hoops Will as well, maybe some other guests, but
Just me and
hopefully,
Charles.
Auburn makes me pay and makes me regret traveling during this. We'll see. We'll see. Ben, any last thoughts?
No, just again, I hope everyone has appreciated how much fun this season has been. The end got a little clunky here as it was like to do, but when you look at the gauntlet that we had to run through to end our season, how amazing is it that we hung a banner in Maui against that incredibly deep and rich field? How amazing is it that we wrapped up the SEC regular season with a week to go in a conference that put 14 teams into the dance? I mean, this has just been so much fun. Just try to keep enjoying it regardless of what happens. Appreciate what it's like to watch a National Player of the Year in Janai Broome suit up in the orange and blue. And remember, folks, next year we're going to be a Nike school. So if you're looking for merch that doesn't have a sports logo that you are worried about being no longer relevant, look no further than Warfam Eagle. You heard the ad at the top of the broadcast. I'm wearing my Warfam Eagle shirt right now that they sent me. It is incredibly comfortable. I love that it's a crew neck. The design on the back is killer. You've seen their logo on a lot of our stuff. Make sure you use our code Jungle15 to get a discount at checkout and grab some stuff because you're going to want to remember this amazing season where Auburn was SEC champions and the number 1 overall seed in March Madness.
Please go do that. If you've enjoyed us all year long, please go do that so we can buy KenPom next year and some other stats and pay for Zoom and things like that.
I do that incredible ad read, and that's how you respond. I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you, Jackson.
Connor Feemster, Chris Thomas, Kames Current, War Eagle guys. War Eagle to everybody that's listening at home. Go into your podcast app, clip, share, send it to some friends. A lot of people don't listen till March and tell them this is the podcast you're going to want to follow as Auburn makes this run the NCAA tournament. Thanks for coming, War Eagle.
War Eagle, everybody. All right. Sorry, that took way too long.
No, it happens to me too. Guys on
It's
YouTube,
out.
thanks
I'll
for
go back
coming. I
in.
know we're like at a schedule with some of the games and this, but we'll be as long as Ben and Stormin and Will and whoever else we can get on here is active after the games, then we'll be post games again.
We'll do our best. We know Shooty Hoops Will only likes to come on when we win, so hopefully that means we can get a few more Shooty Hoops Will podcasts going. Yeah, thanks for being here, everybody. This has been a magical season. It's been our best season ever on the pod. It's been fun to have all of you.